Well, folks, welcome to Blueprint Roundup. We got quite a few things to go over today. So, getting started, we have a Magrider under construction. Anybody familiar with PlanetSide should know the theme going on here. So, essentially, for those familiar with the Prowler, I guess maybe you can think of it like a medium tank. So, perhaps this is a light tank in that regard. Looking at two heavy weapons. Talking about RE2 there. Should also be compatible with vanilla once I crank it out, but really early stages. I'm thinking like, yeah, just a little bit shaving off of what would be here as far as the weapon count. Certainly not as robust with turrets. You know, you could have a mount here or something, but kind of like a cheaper version of it. I want to have a little bit more agility on it too. Maybe something that could be like high G, perhaps. I don't know. I haven't really tested that to see if it's an issue. I honestly don't frequent the high G planets enough with HVs. HVs are kind of a wild card with some of their characteristics, and I really gotta lock that down. Probably one of my weaker points. Not knowing some of the things going on with HVs. They have some weird things like the load order of the cargo and all that stuff. Yeah, really strange. But oh yeah, I guess I should mention too, since RE2 has its weapons changed, would be a good point to introduce a Vanguard. So if we're thinking light, medium, and then a Vanguard here could fulfill the heavy variant of the tank trio, if you will. Yeah. Working on that early stages. Textures really early. Blockwork still working on that. Trying to get an idea of what kind of weapon loadout here. So, kinda light. Yeah, maybe 4 to 6 turrets. Very heavy mounts. A medium mount there in the middle, and probably a light mount here. But otherwise, that's it. So, next thing is so. For anyone interested, I do have a thing going on with my Patreon where I'll do like pirate conversions of many of the various builds released to the workshop. So if we're looking at like the Stellar Mantis here, we also have a Lunar Mantis. Generally, these are kind of more of a prefab build where some of the stuff released to the workshop is kind of an early set, so maybe like a core 4, and then like you do some upgrading here, inserting devices and all that stuff, and perhaps with some of the pirate conversions, they are more committed to device count and thrusters and all that sort of thing. And in addition to that, they also have a general change to the aesthetic, so kind of a little bit more spikier, if you can see that. And yeah, characteristics as well change. We got some more weapon mounts. Yeah. Pretty cool theme though. So, yep, that's the Lunar Mantis, and then going over here. Anybody familiar with the Defender 2? we we have its pirate counterpart, the Offender. Shout out to Ace for that name suggestion. It's really funny. Defender and Offender. It is what it is, and it just worked. Yeah, so kind of the theme I'd want to go for with this pirate line is kind of slapped on. I wouldn't say rudimentary, but just kind of tacked on gear, thrusters, and other bits, guns, that sort of thing. So it does have a change to the aesthetic, not just an increase to the device placement and stuff like that. There, again, here we're doing some aesthetic changes. Now, this is something I would push to the workshop eventually. So, but it is on early access Patreon for anybody interested in it. It's got maybe a little bit more armor at the front of it as comparing to the Defender 2, and yeah. So a lot of these will eventually make it to the workshop. So they might just be early access for Patreon at the moment, but some of them will be exclusive, such as the Lunar Mantis. So if that's something that interests you, check out the link below. Moving forward, we do have the Malevolence is under construction for the Reforging 2 retrofit. And we have, right now at the moment, I have essentially space for all of the lights, mediums, and I think I'm at 6 of the 8 heavies. So with RE2, it allows us to cannibalize a lot of the thruster placements, so that way we can convert those to, like, say, plasma or antimatter. And here, this has given us our opportunity to redefine some of the placement. You know, perhaps before we'd have to compete with some of these thrusters in order to accommodate some of the new devices, like the plasma turbines and stuff like that. Well, that's not going to be an issue if we can just cannibalize some of the thruster compartments. So that's kind of like what we did here with this central one. So really won't need 4. I mean, these could be plasma or antimatter, and then we're just slotting in the plasma turbine here. So still working it out. There was a request to make the hangar bigger in order to accommodate the stag. Fortunately, I kind of messed with it, and it wasn't working for what it was. It was blowing up the size of the build, and it was having too many asks of the dimensions of the ship, like having to go down and cut into this portion to go up. The stag is a really big build, and so there is this parking spot here. Anybody that's interested, it's Malevolence. It's just too. I don't want to grow the build too much because it's getting out of its place. So maybe that could be something I look forward to with the Adjudicator. Is kind of when I do the overhaul for that for RE2. Maybe I'll upsize the hangar to accommodate stag. I mean, it would make sense. But you know, realistically, it's an Imperial build, and whereas Stag is a Umbrella Alliance. But I understand there's some crossover, and then maybe there's like the lower role-playing aspect of maybe one or the other is captured for either faction, and then trying to slot that in to some sort of playthrough with it. So I get that theme. So I would probably look at doing that for the Adjudicator in its line. So yeah, so we're looking at a big gun count here. Not sure if I want to go for trying to get the other 2 of the heavies for this. You know, maybe those could just be cruise missiles. A lot of people use those, myself included. They're really, really impactful. So yeah, so look forward to this to be hitting the workshop at some point. All right, so next thing is the update on the Drake. So last time I left off was essentially this build here. So I had a lot left to do with what's going on with the side here. The back of it wasn't quite done. Number of other things going on. What to do at the front and all that sort of thing. So this is how we started, and this is where we're at. So we now have. Originally, I had some of these heavy weapons up front. These are kind of a placeholder. This is just for the aesthetic of it. It looks really good, so probably wouldn't make sense to have these here. That's kind of too far forward and would draw too much fire. So with playtest, I did find that the enemies were getting some shots on these heavies, even at like a mid placement, because the enemy OPVs are going to target what they can see. So maybe at some points there wasn't a line of sight for them. For other targets, the decoys and stuff like that, so they were taking shots at these. So I wanted to go with a system where they were encased, and this is what I ended up with. So yeah, so this is kind of where we're at the moment. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I haven't tested it, but it should be a significant reduction to some of the stray shots that it would take. I might keep these, but I'm not sure how I would encase them. So for sure we've got 4 of the 8 heavy mounts here. Now I do have, I'm working on place for, so this would be a placement for like the heavy missile launcher, so that would be 2, and going to be looking at mirroring it on the bottom. So if you can think that 4 missile launchers there and maybe 4 heavy weapon mounts, if that's a configuration you want, or maybe it could be cruise missiles instead of using those. So probably not going to have 4 heavy mounts for the weapons. I will try to work something out with that, but more than likely that won't happen. So it'll have to be kind of like a mix and match. You know, maybe you do have 4 of the 8 heavy weapons, and the other bits could be converted into cruise missiles or something. So another addition here is the railgun mount. This is kind of where we're at with it. I did do some testing with the line of sight firing, so both first person and external, there aren't any issues with the railgun. That's always the thing that needs to be checked for, especially on builds that have some large dimension, because often there's issues where there's going to be a line of sight with that. So that's working out. Actually, it works pretty good. Being that center mount there, it's got a good protection going on around it. Of course, this front section here, this could be used for decoy placement. And when you guys get your hands on this, this is kind of where it's going to be at. I want to leave it empty. Originally, when the build first came out, I didn't have any plans for it, and then when Reforged Eden dropped its shield system, that's kind of where this went, but then it didn't make sense to have like the expensive shield parts up front. So what I did with that is I made a system where the compartments are more towards the midsection. So you could think like these are the bigger shield parts. You could fit all 8 of them for anybody who's still going to be playing Reforged Eden 1. And then the center compartments, originally I had placement for all 3 of the big fusions, but it's kind of like overkill, and I just decided to slot in this railgun in its place. So that's where the center line compartments are. This is midsection. And we've got, here's where we would access our bigger compartments. Just take a little walk here. Maybe adjust some of the lighting. It's pretty cool. I did some changes here with the dimensions of the ship, mainly the bridge. I pushed the bridge back. I wanted to protect that area more, so that kind of offset some of the placement. I got to clean a lot of that up. You know, I've got duplication of some blocks here, like these windows. So a lot of the interior changes need to be cleaned up. Yeah, so this got pushed back. I was finding the bridge was taking hits as well. I've been doing a number of changes to try and mitigate shots into the glass here, so like this half block, and without completely killing the view out of that area. So it's kind of where we're at it with that. I have increased the visibility from the pilot's perspective by opening up this little bit right here. So that's somewhat improved. Not spectacular. So it's kind of hard to get a balance between like visibility and protection, right? That's where we're at. That's still doing a lot of shaping. This might change a good deal, this wrap around this glass. Yeah, the stray shots like versus a Tavera. Even if you do pack this nose with a lot of decoys, again, like if you're doing some maneuvering or approaching at odd angles and stuff, there will be situations where the OPV is going to target other things. So just want to safeguard as much as possible from that stray shots, and that's what we're doing with this build here. Probably going to be doing something like this to protect the turret fire, so we're not taking any stray shots there. Kind of got that going on here on this side, so some things like that. Now, again, the front will provide a good layer of decoy potential, so it'll come in empty, and you'll be able to define which targets you want to go at. So if it's like Xerax, maybe you're going to fill this up with like combat steel and just place the decoy devices at intermediate sections, and you can determine what that is: thrusters, weapons, or generators, whatever have you. And yeah, but overall, it's I did take it against the Tilvera, and it worked out okay with the first iteration. I tried like a no shield setup and just do block fill here, and that's kind of not the way to go. I don't know. It's a big ship, it really is, but even still, just doing like a stationary park and having block fill all combat steel, even with that, it didn't work out. Now that could have been due to like my weapon configuration. Originally, I didn't have cruise missiles in the equation, and that is a really important thing versus some of the Xerax targets, or any kind of shielded target is using the cruise missiles. But just maneuvering a little bit, that obviously helped out a lot, and then having the block filled there just as like a emergency stopgap for if the shields go down and you need to back out works really well. So originally I tried it as just like a straight up armor tank with just like having the basic shield and no extenders and stuff like that. And you know, I don't know, I don't like that, right? It's trading out a lot of blocks, and that'll probably be a thing versus Legacy for sure. You know, if you want to fill it up with like Xeno, you know, that could be effective. But for Xerax, I think you'd want to go with something like a hybrid. Maybe a good amount of block fill, but then also not going too heavy, so you don't have to invest too much in thrusters, so you will have some agility. Yeah. So, doing a lot of work here on the edge with the wing. Still working on turret mounts. We're kind of light with the turrets at the moment, so working on that. I do have a little thing going on here with the mounted weapons at the edge, so there'll be somewhere for the light weapons. Didn't have any that factored in. I wanted to do just like heavies originally, but I guess it makes sense. Maybe that option would be something that people want. Yeah, thruster count here, we're kind of ridiculous on that, so that's something that needs to be worked out. Again, this was kind of like, this first started with Reforge-1, so since with the inception of like upgrading thrusters and stuff, now it's become to the point where it's redundant having these, so it'll probably be like placeholder block work here for these thrusters, and then maybe these outsides could be antimatter, which by the way worked pretty good for this. Right, so this is where we are with our rear aesthetic, if you will. The butt of the ship. Have added a spoiler. It's kind of, I guess, maybe like a signature theme for the Phoenix Starworks line. A lot of the builds feature that, such as the Hannibal. Okay, so kill the lights real quick. See what we're looking at. I'm still working on it. It's getting there. This is a big project, right? So, having worked with the adjudicator, that was another big one that took quite a while. And I guess for reference, let's take a look at a scale comparison. So somewhat comparable in scale. Maybe the Drake is a little bit bigger. The masses, I don't know, masses may be comparable. It's a wider midsection of the adjudicator, but it's somewhat comparable as far as the mass, but the length is definitely, the Drake is longer. A good bit longer. So that will translate to more block fill for absorption, bearing decoys, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, once this, I guess since we got the adjudicator out here, once we start looking at doing a refit for RE2, might have to go ahead and increase the size of this hangar so we can, in fact, fit in a stag. Right, so another thing to look at here on the Drake is the hangar area. We've done a rework. Originally, I didn't have any intention to have some onboard arms, so what I was thinking to do is with these boons, I was just going to leave this area open, and the player could opt to place some farms, and of course that could still be a thing. You know, whatever you do with that open area is going to be entirely up to you. It could be armor, and it could be additional farms or whatever. But so doing a rework with some of the area, I did slot in a couple of grow plots, so it will at least have an 18. So it'll be 9 on either side of this hangar. Unfortunately, they're separated, so you have to run some distance, go pick one, and then pick the other. But, well, it's better than not having them, right? Yeah, this is our hangar space here. This is the maximum size hangar, so whatever SV you have that can fit into maximum size hangar, there it is. Should be able to house maybe 2 of them. And then we have an HV entry here. I guess you could use the primary hangar for that, but with these entries here on either side, these are actually flush with the ground, but this ramp is not. So this might be something that you have to walk into as a player, or maybe for some vehicles on a high-G planet, for example, maybe this is the way you need to go. So this is our hangar. This is a look at it. We should be able to accommodate all of the devices in this build. So we're talking like the turbines. We've got provisions for that. For RE1, I did do cutouts for solar placement, so all that should still be available. It's a pretty big hangar, actually. I guess I originally didn't intend to do that for the this cruiser. I just wanted to be a purely warship, and you know, the farms weren't on the list either. So those things, I guess, just kind of worked their way in. This is our CPU house, encased with 1 to 2 layers of combat steel, or perhaps Xeno. This will be our warp drive placement. And then last we have our bridge here. Still kind of working this out. It's a hot mess with air leaks, and what are we going to do with the protection? Again, trying to do what I can to protect this glass without losing this that aesthetic there. And we'll have, I'm probably going to take this out, put some sort of table here, kind of have like a like an officer's meeting room or something. We'll be having some RP elements. It's kind of, it's a big ship, but it's not big. If that makes sense. There's not, I guess there's not too many rooms or compartments. I don't want it to be too complex. With these bigger builds, I want them to be simple, you know, some nice, efficient, straight line, center line, transitions, your hallways and stuff like that, easy placement. I don't like to have like winding corridors and stuff like that, because I also play, right? And it's I guess with builds you kind of go through a honeymoon phase where, yeah, all the fluff and stuff is nice, but you know, after a couple hours that wears off, and it's like, how efficient is it to get in and out of the build? And then are the devices such as first aid and all that sort of thing, are they efficiently placed? How fast can you get to a control station, that sort of thing? So, you know, maybe I've had a lot of RP stuff in the past, or maybe some amount of it, and I've kind of worked that out. I just like efficiency now. So, not to say that I won't add some RP stuff, like for example, the I do have the kind of like a thruster house set up right here where you'll be able to walk into this engineering and touch most of these thrusters, and you know, I'll do some sort of nice looking dress up for displays and stuff like that. But I would rather like something like that be kind of like a reserved for areas that aren't necessary to get to, right? So, yeah. So probably a good couple weeks for this thing cranks out. We'll be doing another round of live testing. Yeah, we'll give you another update on that. And last thing we're looking at here is a couple Star Wars projects. So we've got the TIE Bomber 2. Turn on the lights a little bit. Right. Okay, so TIE Bomber 2. And we got a weapon mount here. So one of the things I'm working out is, yeah, with the shield penetration, having these stacked up as weapons doesn't work too well once they start exploding, right? So I kind of the idea was to have just one build and then roll it out for RE1, RE2, and then vanilla. But with RE2, the explosion on SVs, or I guess the explosions in general, really chew through blocks, and having like a double layer of hardened steel behind this and the weapons exploding, it still went through 2 layers, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's like hardened steel is plastic now. So what I'm gonna have to do is, like, this encasement here is going to have to be combat steel, and then that would be a build for Reforged Eden 2, and then I'll have to have a separate one that's just hardened steel for vanilla. But it does offer, so anybody familiar with like the TIE Enforcer, originally with that I had, with it being such a confined space, I had to push the cargo to the surface. So here with this, everything's pretty much an encasement of steel, so considering the shield penetration of RE2, that should mitigate a lot of that since we've moved the cargo to the inside. Again, it'll be upgradable, expandable with thrusters and all that sort of thing, so a good deal of space on the inside for upgrades and additional devices, so should be able to accommodate a good profile. If you're talking shields, shield extenders, warp drive, all of that can fit in here. Yeah. So then last thing here is the, well, the Sith attack program. This is based on the Sith Fury. Drew some inspiration from that, so I wanted like a Imperial counterpart to the Stag, so this is what we have so far. Originally, this was going to be for RE1 and vanilla, but now with RE2, we're not going to need all of these thrusters, so I could downstep some of these. I did have like some 3x7 thrusters here, and they were sticking out, so I could actually take those out and just put like some like antimatter jets or plasma jets or something like that, and that would fulfill the same role, and I won't have to deal with those sticking out, killing the aesthetic. So one of the perks of RE2, I suppose. Yeah, still kind of working it out. I want to try and get as many of the heavy weapons on this machine here as possible for RE2, but I do want to have some RP elements in it, because like the Sith Fury itself, it did have a good deal of internal compartment space, various rooms and stuff like that, so I like to do what I can with that for this build. But keeping in mind, I will prioritize device placement, so it may be that I don't end up having some RP stuff like little side rooms and maybe like a table with any sort of hologram games or something like that. But, you know, maybe it will. You never know. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, there was this thing we looked at in a previous Blueprint Roundup, something that would be kind of like a smaller. So if you can think of like the Drake as a heavy cruiser, maybe this is like a frigate or a destroyer or something like that. So I did do a little bit of work since last time looking at this. So we're looking at, I want to have, well, one of the large fusion reactors, placement for that, and then see about being efficient with some of the thrusters so that doesn't eat up a lot of the CPU. So maybe like one drive thruster there, and maybe one here with some supplemental advanced, and maybe these guys here could be plasma. So I want to take out as much of the CPU cost of thrusters as I can, and yet retain a nice big profile that, again, like what we have going on with the Drake, something here in the nose that could be block fill and some decoys and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll be worked on at a future date. So first thing, priority is the Drake, but as far as the CV, and then looking at doing some other projects, probably get the TIE Bomber. That I think this is going to be my next release to the workshop as far as an SV. A big TIE Bomber too. And that's it. I'll keep y'all posted. Got anything else going on? I'll give you some looks and show you what's cracking with this guy here. This big project. Man, these things kind of wear you out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, LyfeForce out. Hey folks, if you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a patron today. As a patron, you gain access to exclusive builds not featured on the workshop, early access builds, as well as participate in a number of things, including polls, feedback, comments, suggestions, ideas, or anything you'd like to submit to current and future builds. If any of this appeals to you, please consider becoming a patron today. Link in the pinned comment below. Thank you.